This is the ATN International News on Atlantic Television Network. First, the headlines. In Malawi, the late VP to be buried in Ncheu. Malaysia, Asian Muslims celebrate Eid al-Adha. In Russia, authorities storm detention center and free hostages. In Brazil, protests sweeps streets against criminalization of abortions. In Australia, the Chinese premier agreed with Albanese to manage differences. The late Malawian vice president will be buried on Monday in his home district of Nchue, 180 kilometers south of Lilongwe. The 51-year-old Saulos Chilima and 8 other individuals, including the ex-wife of the former Malawian president, died when a twin-propeller aircraft went down in a hilly forested area in bad weather. A state service was conducted on Saturday, led by the country's president, Lazarus Chakwera, to pay tribute to the vice president. Officials with Chilema's United Transformation Movement political party, a party different from the president's, criticized the government's response as slow and said that there was no transponder on the plane concerning for an aircraft carrying a high-level delegation. Chilima and Chakwera had led Malawi under unusual circumstances. They both ran for president in 2019 as opposition candidates, but teamed up to challenge the election results in court over irregularities and won. They then won the rerun of the election, the first time in Africa that a court overturned election results resulted in the defeat for the incumbent president. Chilima had said that Chakwera had agreed to step down after his first term and allow him to run for president in the next year's election as part of their alliance. However, Chakwera announced that he will run for re-election, and there were signs of friction between the two. Chilima also had recently faced corruption charges over allegations that he received money in return for influencing awarding of contracts of government procurement contracts for the armed forces and police. Prosecutors dropped the charges last month, and he had denied the allegations, and Chilima had just returned from an official visit to South Korea on Sunday. He was in his second term as vice president after serving from 2014 to 2019 under former President Peter Mutharika. The search for the plane prompted an international response, Chakwera said. The US, the UK, Norway, Israel had offered assistance and provided specialized technologies. The U.S. Embassy in Malawi said that it had assisted and offered the use of a Department of Defense small C-12 plane. Malawi also asked neighbors Zambia and Tanzania if they could help. Malawi, a country of around 21 million people, was ranked as the 4th poorest nation in the world by the World Bank in 2019. Muslims in Asia on Monday celebrated Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, with food and prayers for people in Gaza suffering from the Israel-Hamas war. One of the biggest Islamic holidays, the occasion commemorates Prophet Ibrahim's test of faith through slaughtering livestock and animals and distributing the meat to the poor. It is a joyous occasion for which food is a hallmark, where devout Muslims buy and slaughter animals and share two-thirds of the meat with the poor, and its revered observance that coincides with the final rites of the Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. Much of Asia, including Indonesia, Malaysia, India, and Bangladesh, observed Eid al-Adha. On Monday, and while Muslims in other parts of the globe, including Saudi Arabia, Libya, Egypt, and Yemen, celebrated the holiday on Sunday. On Monday, worshippers shoulder to shoulder joined in communal prayers in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. Preachers in their sermons called on people to pray for Muslims in Gaza and Rafah. Although Indonesia has more Muslims than any other country in the world, its traditions to mark Eid al-Adha have been influenced by other religions. Residents in Yogyakarta, an ancient center of Javanese culture and seat of royal dynasties going back centuries, believe that if they manage to catch the crops arranged in the form of a cone-shaped pile called gunungan that is paraded from the royal palace to the Kauman Grand Mosque, it can bring them good luck. They scramble to grab various food offerings made of fruits, vegetables, and traditional snacks. Eid al-Adha commemorates the Quranic tale of Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice Ismail as an act of obedience to God before he could carry out the sacrifice. God provided a ram as an offering. In the Christian and Jewish telling, Abraham is ordered to kill another son, Isaac. In Malaysia, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim joined thousands of congregants, including foreign tourists, and offered morning prayers at a mosque near his office in Putrajaya, south of capital Kuala Lumpur. Meanwhile, at a wholesale market in Selayang, just outside the capital, Muslim workers there kneel on mats placed on a large piece of white cloth while outside the market to perform their prayers. In his message, Anwar said that the opportunity to go on the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca is one of God's great gifts and should make one more ascetic and simpler. Muslims in India, where they compose of 14% of the population, celebrated Eid al-Adha and on Monday across the country. In New Delhi, thousands offered prayers at the historic Jama Masjid, a 17th century mosque, and families assembled early in the morning, and many people shared hugs and wishes after the prayers. Numerous merchants with goods gathered on the streets leading to the mosque, where people bargained with them for the best prices. Devotees across Bangladesh, a Muslim majority nation of over 170 million people, on Monday marked the festival in open fields and mosques, where many prayed for a better world. And the world free from war. More than 400,000 devotees, the country's largest congregation, offered their prayers at a field in Kishoreganj district in the morning. In the capital, Dhaka, a prominent imam led a gathering on the Supreme Court grounds where 35,000 men and women participated. Millions of cattle were slaughtered across the country to celebrate the day. Singapore authorities said Monday a dredger boat reported a sudden loss in engine and steering control that led it to hit a stationary cargo tanker, causing an oil spill that had blackened parts of the city island's southern shores. The Netherlands flagged dredger Vox Maxima struck the Singaporean fuel supply ship Marine Honor on Friday. It ruptured one of the cargo tanks on the Marine Honor, which leaked low sulfur oil into the sea. Although the leak has been contained, tides washed the spilled oil that has been treated with dispersants further along the shoreline. Including to the popular resort island of Sentosa. Singapore's Maritime and Port Authority, in a joint statement with the National Environment Agency, the National Parks Board, and the Sentosa Development Corp, say that the master and crew members of the Vox Maxima are assisting in the ongoing investigations. Parts of the beachfront at a park, beaches at 3 southern islands and a nature reserve have been closed to facilitate cleanup efforts. Sentosa beaches remain open to the public, but sea activities and swimming are prohibited. Oil Spill Response Limited Oil Spill Response Limited, an industry-funded cooperative that responds to spills, will deploy floating containment and recovery devices to corral the oil on the water surface, where 2 skimmer craft will then lift the oil into storage tanks. The statement said over 250 workers are involved in the cleanup. Close to 1.5 million kilometers of containment booms that have been set up to trap the oil, and another 1.6 kilometers of the temporary barriers will be laid over the next few days to prevent further spread of the oil into the shore. And the statement said the National Parks Board also deployed oil-absorbing booms to protect mangroves at another park that hasn't been affected so far. Members of the public who volunteered to help have been assigned to patrol the park for early signs of oil leaks. Conservationists and biologists are monitoring the full extent of the damage on marine and wildlife. Photos in Singapore's newspapers. Never finish now. I've not seen any this thing to checkmate my of the damage on marine and wildlife. Photos in Singapore newspapers and on Facebook showed one small dead fish and a kingfisher covered in oil. Yemen's Houthi rebels and its internationally recognized government are locked in a fight for control of the country's banks that experts warn is threatening to further wreck an economy already crippled by nearly a decade of war. The rivalry over the banks is throwing Yemen's financial system into deeper turmoil. Already the Houthis who control the north and center of the country, and the government running the south use different currency notes with different exchange rates. They also run rival central banks. The escalating money divide is eroding the value of Yemen's currency, the rial, which have driven up prices for clothing and meat before the Islamic holiday of Eid al-Adha started on Sunday. For weeks, Yemenis in Houthi-controlled areas have been unable to pull their money out of banks' savings accounts, reportedly because the Houthi-run central bank based in the capital, Sana'a, has stopped providing liquidity to commercial and government banks. Protests have broken out in front of some banks, dispersed by security forces. Yemen has been torn by civil war ever since the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels took over Sana'a and much of Yemen's north and central in 2015. The Saudi-backed international recognized government and its nominal ally, the Southern Transitional Council, a group supported by United Arab Emirates, governed the south and much of the east, centered in the southern ports of Aden. You're watching international news on Atlantic Television Network. We will be back shortly after this break. Stay tuned.
Jack us up and down like this now.
I hope nobody carry belle.
Why you ask? Oh?
Because this road where they see so it no guarantee safe delivery.
We just dey vote for government, but we not get good governance.
At all.
Road so e no dey. Light o usa. The infrastructure nko e come turn to be forbidden fruit for the city.
Corruption, spoil everything. Hello?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
No vex. Now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I hear, I'm hearing you.
Yes. We saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Yes. Are you working on them now?
Ma, the prices you quoted are way too high now.
Madam, sorry, please don't cost.
We found the laptop you said is 1.8 million naira for 600,000 naira.
Hello?
Now my body network there.
I can't hear you. Network is bad.
Madam, we can hear you. Continue.
Hello, I can't hear you. I will call you back.
That behavior not good now.
Madam, now this kind behavior they kill our country. You suppose do things differently, make Nigeria for better.
This message is brought to you by the Akin Fadehi Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
I don't get a lot. Boy, they won't booga me small. They say, man, give them bribe. I say, nothing. Okay, now. We go block later. You remember that contract we do that time now? They don't pay.
But first, you see the house rent with the old things. We go first call caretaker, take the money, slap am.
Beg, see, you know, say I get annual levy why they pay for club. Where me and boys they shout beer in our house, I go pay that one. You remember say me and tell you I go buy you motor. I go buy now.
Okay, they pay you money now. We don't they beg caretaker? Why would they beg landlord, old man, and they agree give us time? Money can't come now. You won't divert time. You said na corruption. Corruption, not in my house and not in my country.
Sure.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption not in my country.
Kasali, I hope so my car don't ready. I get interview in 30 minutes.
Okay, you don't ready. I just the last minute instruction where you give me yesterday. Now in the cause more delay.
Which instruction?
Maybe now you say make I change the meter, make you no read it again.
Which time did I make you change meter? Oh, Kasali, why you do like this now? You don't get sense. You don't read the text message. No, I won't send them to. Like Kasali, my electrician, make it come house, call me do my meter so that people they read again. You the electrician?
You're electrician.
Yes, now.
So you call Kasali electrician, make it come help you adjust your meter, make it for no read again, Abi. So you said you want join people where be say they no want they pay NEPA bill again, Abi. Oga, you no good now. You don't use you don't they behave like all these stiff people.
Oh, what you change from your motor? What you change from?
Two lights. Fuel gauge. Speedometer.
For what thing are you for? Come on for home my motor. I bet you identify for me.
Okay. Now don't do something we corrupt. And do something come backfire. Now go come they find how to dodge them.
What you talk?
They greet you.
Corruption not in my
This
country.
message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
And with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption not in my country.
What you want to buy?
Potato. Small basket. I want plantain. But why your plantain can't hard like this? Why?
Madam, now the outside hard. Inside there, it is very soft.
Madam, wallahi make her no buy them. Make her show you something. What? What in be this one? Madam, this one now the chemical where they put on for the plantain make her ripe up.
So you dey put chemical for plantain where people go chop?
Now water, no be chemical.
Madam, water. You know say Pela I don't talk and say water and not be enemy. Drink them.
Where I collect that water, drink am.
I just stop finish. See my belly. After it don't big. I just stop drink water finish. I don't
Wait, you drink them now. At the sell plantain, I go come put on for chemical because I want to make a ripe go. That's why I talk now corruption. Corruption. Not be for this kaswa, come not be for this country. Now me take am.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
And with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
Corruption not in my country.
Driver, why you just dey jack us up and down like this now?
I hope nobody carry belle.
Why you ask oh?
Because this road where they see so, it no guarantee safe delivery.
We just dey vote for government, but we no get good governance.
At all.
Road so e no dey. Light o usai.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara.
You're welcome back to International News on Atlantic Television Network. Now to the rest of our stories. The world's 9 nuclear-armed states continue to modernize their nuclear weapons as the countries deepen their reliance on such deterrence in 2023, a Swedish think tank has said Monday. We have not seen nuclear weapons playing such a prominent role in international relations since the Cold War, said Wilfred Moan, director of the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute's Weapon of Mass Destruction program. Earlier this month, Russia and its ally, Belarus, launched a second stage of drills intended to train their troops in tactical nuclear weapons, part of Kremlin's effort to discourage the West from ramping up support for Ukraine. In a separate report, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, said that the 9 nuclear-armed states spent a combined total of $91.4 billion on their arsenals on 2023, equivalent to $2,898 per second. The Geneva-based Coalition of Disarmament activists won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017. The group said that the figure showed a $10.7 billion increase in global spending on nuclear weapons in 2023 compared to 2022, with the United States accounting for 80% of that increase. The U.S. share of total spending, $51.5 billion, is more than all other nuclear-armed countries put together. There has been a notable upward trend in the amount of money devoted to developing this most inhumane and destructive of weapons over the past 5 years, said Alicia Sanders Zachary, Policy and Research Coordinator with ICANN. The next biggest spender was China at $11.8 billion, she said, with Russia spending the third largest amount at $8.3 billion. All this money is not improving global security. In fact, it's threatening people wherever they live, Sanders Zachary said. SIPRI estimated that some 2,100 of the deployed warheads were kept in a state of high operational alert on ballistic missiles, and nearly all belonged to Russia or the United States of America. However, it said that China is also believed to have some warheads on high operational alert for the first time. Regrettably, we continue to see year-on-year increase in the number of operational nuclear warheads, said Dan Smith, CIPRI's director. He added that the trend will likely accelerate in the coming years and is extremely concerning. Russia and the United States and have together almost 90% of all nuclear weapons, CIPRI said. The sizes of their military stockpiles seem to have remained relatively stable in 2023, although Russia is estimated to have deployed around 36 more warheads with operational forces than in January 2023, the watchdog added. In its CIPRI Yearbook 2024, the institute said that the transparency regarding nuclear forces have declined in both countries in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, and debates around the nuclear sharing arrangements have increased in importance. Washington suspended its bilateral strategic stability dialogue with Russia, and last year Moscow announced that it was suspending its participation in the new START nuclear treaty. Of the total global inventory of an estimated 12,121 warheads, in January, about 9,585 were in military stockpiles for potential use. An estimated 3,904 of those warheads were deployed with missiles and aircraft, which is 60 more than in January 2023, and the rest were in central storage. In Asia, India, Pakistan, and North Korea are all pursuing the capabilities to deploy multiple warheads on ballistic missiles, the institute said. The United States, Russia, France, UK, and China already have that capacity, enabling a rapid potential increase in deploying warheads, as well as the possibility for nuclear-armed countries to threaten the destruction of slightly more targets. German police said that Sunday that they shot and wounded a man who was threatening them with a pick hammer and a Molotov cocktail in the northern city of Hamburg, hours before it hosted a match in the European Championship soccer tournament. Police officers opened fire after the man, a 39-year-old German, refused to put down the hammer and the Molotov cocktail, hitting him in the leg, Hamburg police said in a statement. The man was hospitalized with his injuries. It said no one else was hurt. The incident happened in the St. Paul's Poly area of the northern port city, which thronged with fans before the Sunday's Group D match between the Netherlands and Poland. Police said that the man may have been suffering from mental illness, and that there has been no indication that the incident was related to the Euro 2024 game. The police spokesman had earlier described the two as an axe. German authorities have put police on high alert during the tournament, which began on Friday and runs through July 14th for fear of possible fan violence and extremist attacks. On Friday, police fatally shot an Afghan man after he killed a compatriot and later wounded 3 people watching the televised game between Germany and Scotland in a town in eastern Germany. Police said on Sunday that the motive for the attack was still unclear. Security forces stormed the detention center in southern Russia on Sunday, killing inmates accused of links to the Islamic State group, who had taken 2 staff members hostage, newsmen have reported. Journalists on the scene reported the sounds of gunfire while multiple ambulances were seen arriving at the prison in footage on social media. The hostages had to pre-trial detention center in Rostov-on-Don were uninjured, and Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service said in a statement. It said that the hostage takers had been liquidated but didn't comment further. A number of local news outlets reported that at least some of the prisoners had been killed. Earlier, state news agencies citing unnamed sources in law enforcement had said that 6 hostage takers were in the central courtyard of the Rostov region's detention center number 1, armed with a penknife, a rubber baton, and a fire axe. The prisoners include men accused of links to the Islamic State group, it said. Images posted on social media appear to show at least 2 of the hostage takers wearing a headband that resembled the IS flag. Other images showed prisoners wielding knives. And correspondents said that 3 of the hostage takers had already been found guilty on several charges, including disseminating extremist information and plotting to blow up a Russian courthouse. One of the men was sentenced to 18.5 years in prison, while the other 2 received 18 years. News reports said that the verdict hadn't yet entered legal force. IS had carried out a number of attacks on Russian soil in recent years. An affiliate of IS claimed responsibility for the most recent attack in March, when gunmen opened fire on a crowd at a concert hall in suburban Moscow, killing 145 people. After days of intense flooding in Florida, the state and many others are bracing for an intense heat wave, while the Pacific Northwest will experience unseasonable cold season and weather, and there is a potential for late-season snow in the Rocky Mountains early next week. The chaotic weather map includes the possibility of severe thunderstorms developing in between hot and cold fronts. Forecasters said that the colliding fronts could lead to areas of flash flooding between eastern Nebraska and northern Wisconsin on Saturday night, as well as strong storms across parts of eastern Montana into North and South Dakota. Meanwhile, a plume of tropical moisture will reach the central Gulf Coast during the next couple of days, with heavy rain expected to start Monday morning, according to the National Weather Service. They are all related, said David Roth, a forecaster with the National Weather Prediction Center in College Park, Maryland. This heat that's going to be building over the Midwest and the Northeast is because we have an unusually amplified weather pattern for June. A trial of low pressure in the Northwest brought scattered thunderstorms and hail to Seattle and other cities in western Washington in the afternoon, and frost warnings prompted gardeners in northern Idaho to cover delicate plants for the weekend. The president of Honduras has announced the creation of a new 20,000 capacity mega prison, part of the government's larger crackdown on gang violence and efforts to overhaul its long-troubled prison system. President Xiomara Castro unveiled a series of emergency measures in a nationally televised address early Saturday, including plans to strengthen the military's role in fighting organized crime, prosecute drug traffickers as terrorists, and build new facilities to ease overcrowding as narco violence and other crimes mount in the nation of 10 million. Left-wing Castro's mega prison ambitions mirror those of President Nayib Bukele in neighboring El Salvador, who has built the largest prison in Latin America, a 40,000 capacity facility to house a surging number of detainees swept up in the president's campaign of mass arrests. Honduran security forces must urgently carry out interventions in all parts of the country, now witnessing the highest rates of gang violence, drug trafficking, money laundering, and other crimes, Castro said in her midnight address. Authorities plan to immediately obstruct and send dangerous gangsters to a 20,000 capacity prison near the rural province of Olancho in the country's east, said Major General Roosevelt Hernandez. The Army Chief of Staff. Escalated police raids have driven up the Honduran prison population to 19,500 inmates, crammed into a system designed for 13,000, the Honduran National Committee Against Torture, or CONAPREV, reported last year. The government has rushed to build new detention facilities. Last year, Castro announced plans to construct the only island prison colony in the Western Hemisphere, an isolated 2,000 capacity prison on the Islas del Cisne archipelago, are about 155 miles off the country's coast. The Honduran Defense Council also demanded that Congress change the penal code to allow authorities to detain suspected gang leaders without filing charges and carry out mass trials as they do for alleged terrorists. The raft of measures marked the latest example of Castro's hardline stance on security that intensified amongst a surge of narco violence in 2022 when she imposed a state of emergency to combat the bloodshed and suspended part of the Constitution, a page straight from the playbook of Bukele in El Salvador. Like Bukele's anti-gang crackdown that has restricted civil liberties in El Salvador, Castro's tactics have drawn criticism from human rights groups that accuse her government of taking its tough-on-crime tactics too far. But Bukele's success in eradicating gangs that once terrorized large swaths of El Salvador had won him admiration across the region, including in Honduras, where a weary republic wants to see results. Last week, Honduran Security Minister Gustavo Sanchez announced that the government recorded 20% fewer homicides in the first 5 months of 2024 compared to the same period last year. Yet, critics remain skeptical that the Bukele model can deliver results in Honduras, where gangs remain powerful and corruption entrenched, despite the recent drop in homicides. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of Sao Paulo on Saturday as protests sweep across Brazil in opposition to a bill that would further criminalize abortions. If passed, the law would equate the termination of a pregnancy after 22 weeks with homicide. The bill, proposed by conservative lawmakers and heading for a vote in the lower house, would also apply in cases of rape. Critics say those who seek an abortion so late are mostly child rape victims, as their pregnancies tend to be detected later. To rally opposition, rights groups created a Child is Not a Mother campaign that has flooded social media. Placards, stickers, and banners emblazoned with the slogan have abounded during demonstrations, and viral visuals depicting women in red cloaks compare Brazil to Gilead, the theocratic patriarchy Margaret Atwood created in her dystopian novel, The Handmaid's Tale. About 10,000 people, mostly women, filled several blocks of Sao Paulo's main boulevard on Saturday afternoon, organizers estimated. It was the biggest demonstration yet, following events in Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, Florianopolis, Recife, Manaus, and other cities. Many wore green clothes and scarves, a common sight in women's rights mobilizations across Latin America. Marley Gavioli, 65, has mostly refrained from protesting since demonstrators since demonstrations in the 1980s that called for the end of military dictatorship, but she told pressmen that she is too outraged to remain home. I couldn't stay out of this, or I would regret it too much. We are being whipped from all sides, us women. It's past time we do something, she said. Brazil only permits abortions in cases of rape if there is an evidence risk to the mother's life, or if the fetus has no functioning brain. Aside from these exemptions, Brazil's penal code imposes between 1 and 3 years jail time for women who end a pregnancy. Some Brazilian women fly abroad in order to obtain abortions. Of the 74,930 people who were victims of rape in Brazil in 2022, 61.4% were under 14 years of age, according to a 2023 study of the Brazilian Forum on Public Safety, an independent group that tracks crimes. For children, it is common for a pregnancy to be discovered only after 22 weeks. Ivanilda Figueiredo, a professor of law at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, said by phone. For example, they might know that periods, a sign women aren't pregnant, are monthly, she said. Haitian leaders have ousted France Elbe, the beleaguered director of Haiti's National Police, following months of criticisms that she wasn't doing enough to protect officers under assault by gangs. A government official not authorized to speak to the media told press on Saturday that former Haitian police chief Normil Rameau will once again take the helm of an underfunded and ill-equipped department that a United Nations report notes only has around 4,000 officers on duty at a time in a country of more than 11 million inhabitants. Rameau had been dismissed from the post nearly 4 years ago under a different administration. More than 2,500 people have been killed or injured across Haiti in the first 3 months of the year as gang violence continues to surge. Among those killed are nearly 24 police officers, overwhelmed by gangs that control 80% of Port-au-Prince and are better equipped and have more powerful weapons. The more recent killings targeted 3 officers from a newly formed anti-gang tactical unit who were on patrol in an armored vehicle. A 4th remains missing. From 2015 to 2024, more than 320 police officers have been killed, with 120 of them slain under Elbe's administration, according to a survey released this week by the local non-profit group National Network for the Defense of Human Rights. Rameau's appointment comes as a newly selected prime minister and cabinet take the reins of Haiti's government with a transitional presidential council at their side. Rameau previously served as police director general under slain former President Jovenel Moise, who appointed him in August 2019. Prior to that, he oversaw the detective division. He was ousted as police chief in November 2020 after Prime Minister Joseph Joute accused him of being incompetent and not producing results at a time when gangs were seizing control of more territory. Chinese Premier Li Qiang said that he agreed with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Monday to properly manage their nation's differences as they emerge from a hostile era in which minister-to-minister contacts were banned and trade barriers cost Australian exporters up to $20 billion Australian dollars a year. Lee, Albanese, and senior ministers of both administrations met at Parliament House to discuss thorny issues, including lingering trade barriers, conflict between their militaries in international waters, and China's desire to invest in critical minerals. Lee, China's most senior leader after President Xi Jinping, arrived in the South Australian state's capital of Adelaide on Saturday and the national capital of Canberra. The first visit to the country by a Chinese premier in 7 years, Lee told reporters after Monday's meeting that the bilateral relationship was on the right track of steady improvement and development. We had a candid exchange of views on the same differences and disagreements and agreed to properly manage them in a manner befitting our comprehensive strategic partnership, Lee said, through an interpreter. Albanese, who in November last year became the first Australian Prime Minister to visit China since 2016, described the discussions as constructive. Australia advocates that we should all work together to promote a regional balance where no country dominates and no country is dominated, Albanese said. I've made it clear as nations with different histories, political systems and values, we will cooperate with China where we can, disagree where we must, and engage in the national interest, the Australian leader added. Their relations have improved markedly since Albanese's centre-left Labour Party was elected in 2022 following 9 years of constructive government in Australia. Most of the official and unofficial trade barriers Beijing introduced in 2020 on coal, cotton, wine, barley, wood have been lifted since Albanese was elected. Beijing has banned minister-to-minister contacts as it froze out the previous Australian government diplomatically. Agriculture Minister Murray Watt said before the meeting that he would raise the issue of China's ban on Australia's rock lobsters and exports from 2 beef processing plants. The mere fact that we have the first visit by a Chinese premier, the second most powerful person in China since 2017, is an enormous opportunity to provide that dialogue to continue stabilizing our relationship and address some of the most outstanding issues. Watt said Lee was served lobster at a business lunch with winemakers on Sunday and Wagyu beef at a state lunch Monday, news media has reported. Lee planned to underscore China's interest in buying a larger stake, a bigger stake in Australia's critical minerals sector, which is essential to the global transition to renewable energy sources, by visiting a Chinese-controlled lithium processing plant in Western Australia state on Tuesday. And that's the size of the international news for today. Before we go, let's take another look at the major stories. In Malawi, the late VP to be buried in Chue. Malaysia, Asian Muslims celebrate Eid al-Adha. In Russia, authorities storm detention center and free hostages. In Brazil, protests sweep streets against criminalization of abortions. And in Australia, Chinese premier agree with Albanese to manage differences. I am Raymond Ken Bata. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net, and Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram, Atlantic TV Network, or watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you and stay tuned.